Welcome in to another episode of Odd Man Rush. Hope you're having a great week. I'm Will Highland. This is Kyle Diezel. Welcome back into the pod, of course. We've been away for a little bit. The season is well underway. Um, but nevertheless, we're happy to be here. We're about a quarter of the way through the season, so we have a ton to talk about tonight. We're going to try and wrap up all the big stories across the league. However, we're trying to do it without a big agenda because when you've been on hiatus as long as we have, Kyle's been traveling, I've been becoming a new parent. If we start to pick ideas, we're obviously going to forget some. So rather than stick to an agenda, we're going to try and have a big overarching discussion here. So with that said, Kyle, how are you? How's life? Can we get a weather report? And what's been the best part about the NHL season so far?
Things have been great. Finally done with travel, as you mentioned before. Weather forecast, it's a little bit cloudy, a little bit rainy. It's supposed to rain all weekend. It looks like here down in Boston. It may change for all I know. Hasn't snowed yet here. I know in some of the northern states above Mass have gotten some good amount of snow. I can also say Killington, Vermont has opened. So if anyone wants to go skiing, come down to Vermont. Um,
We are not getting paid to say that, but go ahead and do
we
that.
are not going to do that, but so for hockey, I've just enjoyed how competitive it's been. I think right now, still in the Metropolitan, we're going to a little bit later on, that everyone's above 500, which is something crazy and absurd that I don't think we would ever see happen over that way. That is my takeaway from this NHL season so far. It's just seeing how impressive and competitive this Metropolitan is going to be.
Right. Yeah, it's been good. It's been the parity in the league has been incredibly consistent this year. Certainly agree with that. And really, there's only like five or six teams this in the league right now that I would consider to be bad. And I talked about this in the with the NFL too, the other day when I was recording by myself. The NHL is very much like a bunch of teams in the middle that are pretty good, probably not great,
Mhm.
but good enough to maybe win a round. I think there's I think there's probably 10 teams in each conference that I would confidently say, yeah, I could see them winning a playoff round. And that's really good for the sport, especially in an Olympic year. Um,
Right.
to draw the eyeballs, because what's going to happen is, right now you got NFL, college football, NBA, etc. Um, but once the NFL is over in February, but before March Madness begins, you're gonna have the NHL go to the Olympics, its players, and then when that happens and the Olympics are over, you might have some new eyeballs on hockey. And so for the league, if the league is still this competitive in the second half, that could really help them heading into the spring playoffs. So really exciting time to be a hockey fan. And I like what you said about the Metro. Everybody's above 500, you know. Um, I I guess my question for you would be more, let's move over to the West. Colorado right now has the highest odds to win the Stanley Cup and the highest odds to win or to, make the playoffs. And that's not a gambling statistic. That's a analytic statistic from Money Puck. Um, yeah, right now Colorado has a 98% chance to make the playoffs and the best chance to win the Stanley Cup at 12.1%. And they have a 20% chance to make the final. If you're if you're this late in the year and you have a 21% chance to win the final, and I know it's not super late in the year, but you're fifth of the way through the season almost, or 20, 25%, 20% through the season, and you have a 20% chance of making the final, I think that's really good for Colorado. So I guess my question for you, I have a long-winded way of saying it, is, how do you feel about the Avalanche in the Western Conference? Are they truly the top dog right now, or is this a little bit of early season luck?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, them coming off strong is amazing. I think the issue with previous in the last year is goaltending has been the issue. I think we see Scott Wedgwood, who they brought in. I know Mackenzie Blackwood was hurt earlier to start the year. Has been red hot, and that has helped fuel the
Yeah.
fire offensive horse that they've got going. I think of their no true real losses for them this offseason, as we talked about before, but like Nathan McKinnon's playing out of his mind, Kale McCarr. Then bringing Brett Burns in has definitely helped them be more physical in the back end. And then signing Nacius, I think that's how you say it,
Marty
to
Necas, yeah, and they extended
um,
him.
signing him and I'm drawing a blank. Brock Nelson to those long contract. I think this is a team that's ready to go full board. And potentially take home the Western Conference and the Stanley Cup Finals. I do believe they played Edmonton earlier this year and smoked them, uh,
Yes, I believe they did.
which was embarrassing. But as we mentioned before, for Edmonton's issues is goaltending. It seems like the Avs are starting to potentially have found their answer this year to start the year.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a text. I Thursday night football. My dad needs shout out dad. Amazon Prime. You know, quick sidebar. Then I will agree. I agree with you about the Avalanche. I'll get there. Can we stop with the sports on the streaming on like Prime and Netflix? Like, I understand if it's like Paramount Plus or Peacock or something that is like adjacent to a real channel. I cannot do the Amazon Prime. Yes, the game is on Amazon Prime. Why? I have no idea why a place that you go to buy books and storage containers is broadcasting an NFL game. And I know, speaking of hockey, that they do this in Canada too. They have a nationally televised hockey game in Canada on Amazon Prime. Why?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I mean,
So anyway, stupid, hate it, but that's
don't
a
forget we
topic for another day. As
have
far
on
as what,
Max.
what was that?
We have exclusive games also on HBO Max now for the NHL.
In hockey, but is that also on TNT if you have cable though? I think maybe you might be right though. It might be exclusive to HBO. That would be dumb if that's true. I know in baseball they do like exclusive games on Apple TV, which is ridiculous. Like I have Apple TV because I have a Mac and I had like a discounted subscription when I bought the Mac. It's super cheap and I can bundle it with my music, but otherwise I would not have Apple TV. So like nobody has that. So I
No,
don't it's so stupid. Max, I think if there's might be some games that are
correct.
exclusive to
That's
Max.
game like the NFL where you have to have Prime for Thursday night. You've got to have Fox. You've got to have CBS, and if your not team's not local, you've got to go get the NFL Network package. It's like, come on, let's just make it simple.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I I I I and we're young. Imagine how the old people feel. Not, I'm not calling my father old. If he ends up listening, I
I,
love him
I,
dearly.
he has to go when he comes to Vermont to watch the Bruins games. He's got to buy Nesson or
Yes,
come.
Nest. I pay for Nessun 360 now. As a Red Sox fan and a Bruins fan, it is worth it because basically by the time the Red Sox are done, the Bruins have begun, and vice versa. So it's like it pays for itself, I would say, and actually they're one of the few streaming services that lowered their prices. Everyone else is raising their prices. Nessun did lower their price. Now, is it a great product? No. But do I like it? No.
We never
Does
had
it?
to pay. Hey,
What was that?
that we never had to pay for back in the day when we were kids.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it used to be that you just watched the sports because it was on TV. The reason I like the NHL more than the NBA is not only because of the sport itself, but partially due because when I was a kid, the Celtics were on um, NBC Sports Boston. It used to be called something else, and it got cut from satellite TV. And if you live in rural Maine like I do, and you had to have Dish when I was growing up because you couldn't get cable because you were in the middle of nowhere. Uh, the Celtics got dropped from or that channel got dropped from Dish's package and they never picked it back up. So it's like, well, I can't watch the Celtics anymore. Might as well watch the Bruins, and that's why I ended up being a bigger Bruins fan. As it, and so it has impact. But anyway, sorry everybody. We'll go back to the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, I think it's an avalanche of streaming that I'm about sick of. Uh, if we're gonna make a pun out of it. But yeah, the Avalanche are really good, dude. Like I think the offseason moves, like they tried to go for it at the trade deadline. They trade for Coyle, they trade for Nelson, etc. You know, they trade for Nietzsche. Um, and and the Mikko Rantanen thing sort of just blew up in their face.
Yeah,
That he ended up on the Stars, etc. So, um, oh boy, sign-in issues. Don't you love Amazon Prime?
that.
Anyway, I'm just gonna leave that open so it doesn't ding. Anyway, but like I think the Avalanche, the thing about them that makes it feel different this year is they are getting above average play out of their goaltenders. And you know these guys great, so maybe you can talk about it more. You know these guys better because they played for the Devils, but like, oh boy.
I mean, they
How about you just provide our listeners some insight on the Avalanche goalies while I figure out this Amazon Prime thing?
Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood did help the Devils make it partially to the playoffs a few years ago to go take on the Bruins. I know there was other factors involved, but they were 10 years as Devils, and they were solid goaltenders. And as we're seeing this year, they're staying healthy, besides Mackenzie Blackwood, not starting the year healthy. But Scott, usually if a goalie gets hot, that's what the big thing is being a goaltender. If they're hot, the team's going to carry over. But also remember last year, I believe it was 9 of their players, 6 of their forwards to start the year were injured for the Avs. So, like, this team's also healthy this year is another factor that we need to take into account, that they're not come to the season banged up like the Florida Panthers are this year. So they are going to be a very strong-headed team. Now the question is, can they stay healthy the remainder of the season? Because as we know, once it turns to New Year, that's when things start to really ramp up for
Yeah.
players. See what happens after the Olympics in February to see how teams are doing, especially with players who aren't going to the Olympics. They're going to have almost 2 weeks off versus those who go won't have much time off at all.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. And as the season progresses, we'll have a better insight on like, what do the standings look like on January 1? Like,
Mm.
what do the standings look like on February 1, right? It's going to make a huge difference. And then, what happens after? And I don't know if the trade deadline is it later or earlier because of the Olympics.
I think it stays later. I think it's still March.
Okay, so if it's like usually it's the first or second Friday in March,
Yeah.
um, if that's the case and it continues to be that way, I think that's huge for some teams, because some teams are going to be well rested. It's kind of going to be like the Four Nations break in a way, but it's going to be a lot longer, and so you're going to get a better idea. And speaking of a better idea, the West, we were really high on Dallas heading into the season, and they've done pretty well. They're 10-4-3. I'm looking at the standings. And they haven't been as high powered offensively as I think a lot of them expected. But Ottinger's been pretty good. The defense has been pretty good, and the new coach there seems to have fit in well. I think the big surprise team of the West, and this is one of the things I wanted to hammer home on that you and I were right about, was the Anaheim Ducks. We both said we think they could be pretty good, and they are. Right now they're
They
leading the Pacific, and they are 3 points better than the Oilers with 2 games in hand. So what do you think about the Anaheim Ducks and the Dallas Stars?
I mean, I think it's different trajectories. I do think that the Dallas Stars are where they're at. I am a bit concerned of what Ottinger's mentality is to continue this whole season. Like, I'm not even sure if he's going to be a starting goaltender for Team USA. As we've seen before, he hasn't played consistently once we got toward playoff time. I think right now it's, can they get this team really going, start going on this huge streak of winning? I mean, they've won 3 in a row right now. But I do think the Ducks right now have more firepower underneath them. I think comparing them to basically the Rangers, I will do it because most of these players on the Ducks they just acquired in the last 2 are all former Rangers.
The Chris Kreider
They're
and
Chris Kreider,
Jacob
Uba.
Trouba. Yep.
And it's just fine to see the trajectory of those two teams. Like the Rangers hadn't won a home game in what 7 home games they had played, and then they finally won one. And the Ducks
Yeah.
now, excuse me, fire. I don't know what's going on. I think it has to do with bringing in these veteran guys to show them how they can do it, but also has a factor of coaching.
They're
Um,
they're 8-2.
mm-hmm.
I mean, in their last 10 games. And it's not like I'm looking at the standings. It's not like, we'll talk about the East in a second, but like Montreal is a little bit of a uh, overtime merchant. Like they've gone to overtime a bunch, right?
Correct.
The Ducks have um, also like played some close games, but like they are.
I mean, they're scoring.
They're
They're
scoring. Yeah, I'm looking at their point differential. It's, I think, the second best in the West after Colorado.
mhm.
And I mean, the Ducks are playing really well at home, and they have 8 regulation out of their 11 wins. So it's not like Montreal, who only has 5 out of their 10 wins in regulation. The Ducks have 8 out of their 10 wins in regulation. They only have one shootout win, and they're winning these close games, and they're doing so because of the veterans that they brought in and the young guys that they've spent a lot of draft capital on.
And the thing is, they still have plenty of money to spend.
Yes, they
This
do.
is
They,
going to get better. They have the second best goal differential in the West behind the Avs,
yeah,
which is crazy to say.
yeah, and I think that the Anaheim Ducks, if they can keep this together, have the opportunity to almost be like a new Vegas. Now,
Mm, potentially.
in that they are become an attractive warm weather city on the West Coast. Now we know about the attractive warm weather city in Florida that has brought a lot of players down there. Um, Anaheim, we'll see. I mean, the Kings aren't bad either, and they're miles away from each other. But you
What
know,
about the other team down just a little south of them? What about the Sharks here? They're not looking too bad to start the season as well. They've got a lot
yeah.
of
So I wanted to talk about that. San Jose up there, they're in the wild card hunt. But in addition, you've got that um, entire Western Conference right now, sort of made up of teams that the playoff structure, at least right now, made up of teams that you didn't really expect, like Chicago, question mark, Utah, question mark, Seattle doesn't look terrible. Now, Seattle is a little bit of a they've only have 4 regulation wins in 16 games. So like that would bring me, I don't watch a lot of Kraken hockey, right? I do watch later games now, but that would sort of give me a
yeah.
little bit of a pause. Like only 4 regulation wins in 16 games is a little tough. But like you said, San Jose, same sort of story. They've won 4 overtime games. They've definitely been uh dramatic, but I'm hearing talk that you know this new wave of like Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard and Bennett Seneke and Cutter Gauthier, like, and I have a feeling that Gavin McKenna is going to be drafted to the Western Conference. Like, we have an opportunity in like 3 or 4 or 5 years to have the Western Conference be like it was when we were kids. And that's
Mhm.
really exciting because the Western Conference the last few years has sort of been the same teams rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
That's that might not be the case. And so like what do you make of sort of these upstart teams, including the Sharks?
I like it. I mean, it's a huge up and coming to kind of see, like we talked about. It's going to take them a couple of years. These teams and players have to develop. I mean, Scott Brady just phenomenal talent all the way around. Give him another like 2 years here in the NHL, and I think you could see him. We can have the discussion of like him, Bedard, just being like the next like Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid. Like we could see this potentially them running the East at some
Yeah,
point or West here,
the
which is
West. Yeah,
I think these franchises are starting to bring in players that fit well around these younger players. The Doc, we've talked about how they would always suck for a couple of years, but now they're finally bringing key pieces that are fitting around their style and their team. For them to bring Reason, I think, is a huge boost. For them, players rally around him. He's their kind of their emphasizer. I think them getting, for example, Will Smith, another huge acquisition. You can kind of think of it as like what's going on over in with the Islanders of how they brought in Matthew Schaefer and they just lit a fire underneath their asses and they are playing the best hockey they've probably played in years. Like I've never seen a spark from any Islanders fans in a couple of years now, and this young kid just brings it. And I think that's what we are starting to see more of these younger players bring this fire and passion for these teams that may have not had this great spark in the last few years.
definitely. And the West is full of them. And we're gonna get to the East a little bit. There's a handful of examples out there. But we've talked about the good. the good of the West. The good of the West is like Anaheim being surprising, Chicago and Utah being surprising. Utah we didn't spend much time on, but like I got to watch them when the Bruins went out there and like, I really like their top line, Clayton Keller and Dylan Guenther, etc. Really good team. Colorado, we know, established team, very good. Dallas, very good. Winnipeg, we didn't talk a lot about, very good. We know who's good in the West. We haven't talked about who's really bad in the West. And unfortunately for my friends over there in Calgary, they're having a terrible go of it. They're awful. I mean, I don't know how much else to say it. There's been years where they've had seasons where they've been bad, but they've lost a lot of overtime games. They're 4-12-2. I mean, they played 18 games now. They've only won three in regulation. They've only won four overall. Uh,
They have
they
the
lose.
worst goal differential currently in the Western Conference.
It's in the whole league. I looked at it earlier. I'm looking at the standings just like you are. Um, I've watched actually a few more Flames games than I normally would have because I've been up so late. Um, and Yeah, man, they had a really good win early in the season against the Rangers. I want to say it was like almost 3 weeks ago now. But
Mhm.
now when you think about how bad the Rangers have somewhat looked, then it's not that impressive. Um, Even though the Rangers have come on better, the last
They
few
can win on
couple
the
weeks.
road at home, Will.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah, they are great on the road. I believe they've won eight times on the road. But yes, but even though the Rangers have come on strong, I thought back then, oh, like, Rangers not that good, but still a good win for Calgary,
Mm-hmm.
um, to beat a Ranger team that had traveled well at that point. And I thought, oh, well, maybe they've turned the corner because they started out brutal. And then it just got worse. And it looks like Nazem Kadri doesn't want to be there. I know Rasmus Anderson wants to be traded. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't look like anyone wants to be there. And it's really sad because they had like this really fun core of players like 4 or 5 years ago, and now they all found their way out of town. Like people forget Noah Hannafin played for the Calgary Flames. We know about Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan and Elias Lindholm left and Nikita Zadorov left, and it's just been a parade of players leaving town, and it's kind of sad because. Yeah, I mean that they're gonna get a new arena soon, and it's just they've just been awful, and they're on full on McKenna watch. Uh, the issue is, Kyle, let me know what you think. I wouldn't tank for McKenna, and the reason why I wouldn't tank is I learned this as a Bruins fan last year. The lottery is weird.
Yes.
I would tank for a good pick. I would not tank specifically for McKenna because only 1 out of 32 is gonna get the number one pick, and
There's and they're thinking they're going to be one of the worst. Let me tell you, there's a team on the East that's might be the worst franchise currently in the last decade or so.
yeah, we'll talk about them, but let's wrap up. Let's wrap up the West real quick. Predators, Blues, underwhelming. I thought the Predators were going to be better. I thought the Wild were going to be better. I thought the Canucks were going to be better. So that's what happens. They get displaced. What do you think about some of those teams? Are you as disappointed as me?
I'm disappointed more. I kind of expect the Predators. I'm a little more disappointed in the Blues, but they really don't have much talent built around them to really go on. I think it's still a couple years away for them. Since Montgomery got there, so they've got to really restructure that team again. And I think last year was a fluke because he came on. No one expected it. But I'm a little bit surprised with the Wild. I'm a little disappointed that they're not doing much better with the talent they have on that team. But they're still in the hunt here. Still a lot of hockey left. But I am surprised with the Mammoth. I thought the Mammoth were still another year or two away, but they've definitely caught sparks and some fire here, which is awesome, especially for a newer franchise that actually has now a logo and a name to go with it. So I think this is awesome for them and for hockey in general to potentially expand a little bit more if they stay successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've been a great story. And look, it's because of Utah and Chicago being in the playoff mix and having a better season, or because of Anaheim having a better season, that you end up with, Vancouver, St. Louis, Nashville, Calgary, Minnesota at the bottom. Um, and the team that you and I are going to watch together in a couple months that we haven't talked about, I think the only team in the West we haven't mentioned by name is the Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm not writing their funeral because they played I think the least amount of games in the West.
Yeah.
But and they looked pretty good offensively against the Bruins. I think the Bruins had a hard time stopping a nosebleed back then. But I think Vegas will be okay. But if Vegas makes the playoffs, it means that one of these fun teams that we've talked about probably isn't. Um, but you know what? Like so goes the NHL. Like this isn't the NBA. 10 teams don't make the playoffs. Like it isn't Major League Baseball where like half of each league makes the playoffs practically. Like it's hard to make the playoffs even though actually half the league does make the playoffs in the NHL and it's still really hard. I might have just exaggerated myself there, but it's still
Well,
really hard
well,
over that grind.
there's no play-in tournaments. There's no the
Right.
10, 9 seed play each other to play it. No, 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 no. You have 82 freaking games to play to make it. If you can't do it in 82 games, well, we'll see you next year where you got 84 games. You get 2 extra games to try a little bit harder on. So like, there's no excuses.
No,
I,
no. And speaking of no excuses, let's talk about some of the Western Eastern teams, excuse me. Um, a team that I thought wasn't going to have any excuses that had to be better was the Rangers, and we talked about them a little bit off color. Um, they did start out really bad at home, uh, and they still kind of are bad at home, but they've been really good on the road. They are a weird team, but I am happy that they are better because that means I'm right. I am definitely not happy that they're better as a Bruins fan because, the Eastern Conference is going to be a little bit like the West, where there's going to be a lot of teams on the bubble and somebody's going to get hurt and get their hearts broken and not make the playoffs, right? And if the Rangers are good, that's bad for our teams. However, I they didn't really have an excuse. They had to be better. They brought in Mike Sullivan, who has a winning pedigree, and so far they have weathered the storm a little bit. And
yeah,
they're in a wild card position right now. We'll see if they can improve their home record. If they can do that, they'll easily be a playoff team with some of their production they're getting out of their top line. I really like their top line. Gabe Perreault is a great player. He's going to be another one of these young stars that we've talked about. So that's exciting. What do you make of the Metropolitan Division as a whole, including the Rangers, since that's what we started the show talking about?
I mean, I think it's an interesting, as we mentioned before. It's everyone in the division's over 500 or at 500, which is crazy to say. Looking at wins, losses, and overtime losses calculated in there, it's gonna be a battle. I think it's every team is starting to make its way up to an even playing field. But also everyone is mostly healthy is the key part. There's not too many injuries going on. The biggest shock I would say for me right now is how Pittsburgh is playing.
Right,
Team that I thought would be more toward the bottom end, but also it's literally a 4.5 point difference between second place and last place, 17 and 22 points. So it's still very close all the way around. Congrats also to Ovechkin here getting 900. I got to watch it on live television. Don't think I'll ever see anyone else ever score 900 goals again unless they play as old as him or Jaromir Jagr. Like, that's a lot of goals to score.
it is.
And we've seen all of those goals happen, which is crazy to think about. But as I mentioned before, the Islanders, I think, have a spark with Matthew Schaefer as their first number one overall pick. I think this is huge for an organization that you really don't have a lot of focus on for a while. I don't think the Islanders have really been relevant since when they went on that huge skid back the 80s, 90s.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean they had a blip. They eliminated us in 2021.
correct.
But
But
like
this is
they
the relevance of them kind of going deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, like all of their good players in my lifetime have left. Like I think John
Correct.
Tavares is probably the best player in my lifetime that's played for them. And he left, but they've drafted well and they've kept a nucleus there. And then they made a trade a couple of years ago for Bo Horvat that everyone was sort of like looking at with their eyebrow raised. But that's worked out really well for them. And I think they've been strategic about bringing in the right kind of players for their coach, right?
Yeah.
And to have to have Patrick Waugh there is I think made a lot of difference right now. Like I have it pulled up just because we were talking about it. The Islanders have a oh I lost it. They right now have a 40% chance to make the playoffs.
Oh,
Um, it's not a huge percentage, but I think that's because I think the analytics are hedging that, you know, some of the teams that aren't as good right now, like Toronto and Florida and Washington and Detroit, who made it in the past, are probably gonna be better in the second half. They're probably hedging the number there, but to be at this point and have, 40% chance to make the playoffs, considering you had the number one overall pick last year, and I get it, the lottery broke their way, but I think that's good news if you're out on the island and you're an Islander fan. My question for you though is, I know your sister's a Penguin fan and you're a Devil fan. Like, in the Hurricanes, like we have a listener who's a Hurricane fan. Um, like those three teams right now in the Metro. Um, what do you think the odds are that they're the three at the end of the year? Because we're closing in on a quarter of the season being played. Um,
mhm.
And even though the whole division is above 500, like the stats don't lie. And Carolina's been really good, and they've dealt with a lot of injuries. Sidney Crosby's found the fountain of youth, and then we all know what Jack Hughes in the start that he had for you guys. So, like, do you see those three as being the three that come out of the Metro and as the division leaders?
No, I see at least two currently. I still see it as the Hurricanes and also the Devils. Penguins, I'm iffy on because
Yep.
of I do like some of the younger talent on the team. I think you talk about Crosby, but also don't forget about Malkin. Malkin's also on a hot streak as well.
Yep.
So is Chris Letang. Like these older players are finding the fountain of youth, and I think that's huge for them. The question is, how long can that last? They're also getting solid goaltending, which they hadn't gotten in the last few years, and that's something we've emphasized, and I think we're getting it this year for them. Their big star player, youngster, I think it's Brazel, if I'm saying it right. I really like him. He's been a phenomenal start for them.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name either, but he's had a great season.
He's given them a spark. But I don't know if they can keep it up. Carolina's, as we know, they're always competitive with in division play. I mean, they beat us game one. I mean, it's only game one of the year. But as we talked about before, it's a question of they love playing defense first. Can their goaltending match up against a high scoring offense? They can shut us down, apparently, no problem. Go figure. That's always been our kryptonite. But the question I think for the Devils is, besides Jack Hughes, are these younger players that no one talks about, like Dawson Mercer? He's hot. Simone Nemeth scored his first ever hat trick last night against the Blackhawks. Can these younger players continue this hot streak going throughout the whole year? And if it does, great. That's going to potentially help us go further deep in the playoffs, which is what we need. And the next question is, it's going to be up to goaltending. Is Markstrom going to be able? Is going to be healthy? Is he going to last that
Right.
long? Allen's actually played really well. I know he's going to play a couple games. So I kind of like him right now more than I do Markstrom, just because he's played a little bit more better than Markstrom has recently. But any of these teams can pop out. Like I said, the Rangers are starting to find their mojo. They could potentially move up and knock the Pens out.
We
Um,
just talked about New York too, the Islanders too, right? We just talked about them,
correct. I mean,
being
they're just not quite there yet. Washington, I think, is just taking a step a little bit back. And I think the Blue Jackets can secretly sneak in there.
they had a
But
great second half last year, and they have really again another great young player in Fantilli. Um, I mean, they're just they scare me because like their offense could just get really hot, and then they could drop six on you.
I think we'll have to wait to see to the end of closer after New Year to see what this kind of shapes up. It'll kind of give us a better picture once we get past the New Year, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that we haven't talked about, and that this applies to the whole league, is like there's been a lot of teams with back-to-backs. I think the Bruins have played like three or four back-to-backs, it feels like at this point. Um, and I could be wrong, and it feels like they're playing repeat teams over and over again. I don't know if you've had that experience watching the Devils, but like
I I would say so. I
Like
mean,
we're playing like the Senators tonight. The game's going on right now for like the third time in like 2 weeks.
see
And
that's the one thing that's going to drive me a little insane because last year we played all of the Canes before it was even the new year, so we didn't see them again until the playoffs potentially. So like, I don't think it's as spread out as it should be. Like, I should be able to see my rivals like every other month. Like,
we
I should.
only saw, yeah, we only see the Leafs 3 times. Like, how is it that, and this
Yeah,
is great, this is a great segue to the Atlantic. Like, how great is it when these games happen, but how stupid is it that like your divisional games, like we're playing the Leafs 3 times, yet the division is supposedly what matters the most in the playoff structure. It's ridiculous. So
yeah,
I don't understand it. And that we talked about this last pod. That needs to be changed. But one way or the other, like I don't hate the 1 through 4 format for divisions as long as you prioritize divisional play. But if you're not going to prioritize divisional play, then we need to go back to 1 through 8. It's dumb. But anyway, well, this is turning into me complaining tonight, Diesel. But
that that's
the
okay.
Atlantic Division, I'm interested to hear your take on this. Uh, let's just get the Sabres out of the way. What a train wreck.
We'll put them in a different category of they need to restructure the whole organization. Like clean house, fresh start. I'm not just talking play. I'm talking owner. I'm talking everything. Like this team hasn't drafted anyone significant to make the Hall of Fame and stay with them since what, Ryan Miller?
I was just thinking it had to have been Ryan Miller. Yeah.
Everyone else they've either drafted and has gone somewhere else to play in the Stanley Cup or win a Stanley Cup. So it's like they can draft guys, they just can't develop them.
If I'm Owen Power, I'm like, can I get out of here like yesterday? I mean, Rasmus Dahlin's had a pretty good career. He stayed there, but like, yeah, there's really nobody there. What was that guy that played for them forever, but then went to Florida at the end of his career? Not like Reinhardt who did it at the beginning, but like, I forget his name. It's like a couple of years ago. He just went to Florida at the trade deadline. He's like, just trade me to Florida. I want to win a cup, and he did. Forget that guy's name, but um, yeah, and they need to sell the team. Like, I would personally sell the team. I would rebrand. I would go back to like the Dominic Hasek era Buffalo Head. Uh, I would just rebrand like the anytime I see blue and gold Sabres, I think of my lifetime when they've been horrible.
Yeah,
Um, uh, and then I'd rebrand, I'd sell the team, and I'd maybe try and build a new stadium or new arena, excuse me, if you need one, out by where the Bills are building theirs. And just try and just do something different. They're a small market team. It's hard in that market because you have Pittsburgh nearby, you have Toronto nearby, which are huge hockey markets. You also have
correct.
Philadelphia nearby, somewhat. You have Boston. I mean, they're in the Northeast, surrounded by huge hockey markets. So I kind of like they have a good fan base, but it is kind of sad for them. Speaking of sad, although I'm not crying, the Maple Leafs, it's in full meltdown. I mean, if you listen to the Toronto-based hockey media, which is practically all of it, they're having a meltdown over the Leafs. I mean, it's weird because like they're not bad, but they're not good. Like they're not. I mean, 8-1 is like exactly mid, but yikes, it doesn't look good for them. It really doesn't.
No, it's a concern. I mean, it's still early. You can't really count them out yet. But they don't look
Right.
like they don't look like happy to be there. And we've talked about this. They just do not look like an exciting team to watch. Like they just like they're going through the motions. And I get it. Their star-studded goalie still out for personal reasons. I know he's hoping to come back here soon, so maybe that will
Yeah,
turn.
Stolarz has been horrible for them. I know they've tried to window dress it, but like I watched 2 games back to back where it was Swayman versus Stolarz and Saturday and Tuesday. And Stolarz got yanked both times. Like he not. I mean,
It,
and Craig Berube, I thought he was. Isn't it weird how it wasn't Sheldon Keefe's fault? Strange. Uh, it's the player's fault when they bring in a coach like Berube who has won and is respected, and he still can't fix them. I mean, what the
I mean,
heck?
we'll see what happens now. Mitch Marner's gone. How this all plays out. Like if they don't make the playoffs this year, not saying it won't happen, but if it does happen, do you just blow up the team at that point? Like, what is the expectation if you're Toronto? Like, if you don't make the playoffs, do you blow it up?
I mean, I have no idea. That's something I would love to talk about someday when we have a lot of time. Like if they miss the playoffs, we should do an entire show in May. We should do like two shows back to back, one for the playoffs and then one to decide what do we do with Toronto. Um, maybe they can combine with the Sabres and they can just be one franchise, and then we can add an expansion team in Quebec City since that's what everybody wants. See how well that would go over.
Speaking
Um,
other teams that haven't been off to a hot start here in the division. What about the Panthers here? I know they haven't looked too well. I know they're still hurt a little bit, but what's your
yeah.
thoughts on the Panthers here not having a great start as well?
So I'm giving them a free pass, and I don't know if you are going to as well, but like I'm giving them a free pass because like they're missing Kachuk and Barkov. Like if you were to say the Bruins don't have Pasternak and Zaka, then yeah,
Well,
they'd
I think
be
they'll secretly somehow sneak their way in, whether it's a wild card or a top seed,
yeah.
and they're going
It's
to be.
still early. I think they're still a playoff team. I think they're too good. I think Bob, even though he's showing some early signs of age, not huge signs, early signs. I
Just a
still
little
think
bit.
he's I still think he can. I mean, they're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I'm not going to nitpick
Yeah,
the Florida Panthers. Like I think they can get back there. The big question for me is Detroit. Like Yzerman's been under a lot of heat up there um, for all these years as they've been building this team, and this team had sort of um, a bubble where they're always like good but not good enough. Like between them and Florida and Tampa Bay, like in the Atlantic is sort of it's really hard to read. Because I expected those three teams to be better. I still think Florida's a playoff team. I still thought Detroit was going to be a playoff team, and I thought Tampa. I had Tampa going to the regional the conference final. So like those three teams are confusing. But again, it's early. Um, I
yeah.
think I think
Lightning.
the Thanksgiving rule might not apply this year.
It may not. I mean, we could say the same about the Metropolitan. It could be a whole 360. We can see the team just fall out. But I did watch the Lightning. They didn't look fluid. And I watched them like their first 2 weeks, and it's still early on, but they just haven't had that chemistry or the gel. Same as like the Maple Leafs. There's just no chemistry there yet, and this is the same basically teams they're bringing back. So maybe it's just a slow start for them. Hopefully they get their gears together because mostly
Yeah.
they're healthy, I would say. I mean, the Red Wings, I feel like at this point, are we really shocked? It's been
No,
10
they're
years.
mid. They're gonna be mid forever. Yeah.
They haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. The last time they made it is 2015, 2016.
They're kind of like to use like a NFL equivalent, like they're kind of like the oh let's think of a good. I had it on the tip of my tongue and I lost it. Oh, you know what they are? They're like the Cincinnati Bengals. Thank you. Um, they're like once in a while you'll be like, wow, they're actually pretty good, and then you'll forget about them for a while because they don't.
They don't show up.
Yeah, like they're not bad. They're never like the Bengals were bad that one year they ended up drafting Joe Burrow number one overall, but like I don't think the Red Wings since the last 15 years, like obviously before that they were a dynasty, they were really good. But like last 15 years they've sort of been like okay, but
Yeah,
underwhelming. And
like, I mean, they show you some excitement and then they fall off. I mean, maybe you consider them as like, no, you can't compare them to the Mets. That would happen to Toronto's.
they don't spend as much money as the Mets. Mets at least have made a World Series in 2015. Like they're
Speaking of teams that had high hopes and expectations and shocking surprises as they did last year, what are your thoughts here? Are you more shocked that the Canadians are doing this well, or more shocked that your Bruins are having this hot streak going?
all right, so let's talk about that. But quickly though, just putting a bow in our previous discussion, I do think the Lightning are going to be okay because they've been playing better as of late, and they still have
Yeah,
like a top three goaltender in the world. So I'm still okay with the Lightning. With the Bruins and Canadians, very fun because they're gonna play each other, I think, in 2 days.
Or you could throw in there the Senators as well, since they're only. I mean, those are the
Yeah.
top teams.
Yeah, let's check in on that game, by the way, too. That's going on right now. Um, right now
Two
they
Senators.
it's 2-0 Senators. Okay, well, you know what? At least it's not 7-2 yet so far, like it was the other day, 3 weeks ago. Hey, the Bruins have won 7 in a row. You can't win 8 in a row. You
It's
know,
hard.
like
It's
like you just eventually you're gonna lose. It's gonna be okay. Um, but like I think going back to the Bruins and Canadians, I think it's more important for the Bruins to go. They're in Ottawa tonight, then they'll have a day off, and then they'll go to Montreal, not far away. They'll probably be in Montreal tonight, hang around in Montreal for a couple days. I think it's really important that the Bruins show up Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, Montreal, because there's been a lot of gas on the Canadians this year, and they've had a good year. They've had a really good year. I think I had the playoff odds for the Montreal Canadiens are at 60% right now. Um, and if you look at goalies, the uh, the Jacob Dolbus kid, I don't really know how to pronounce that name. He's taken the job away from Montebo, uh, and
Mhm.
and like Montreal's been playing really well. Slavkovsky's very exciting. Cole Caulfield's trying to make the Olympic team. Like it's fun. It's fun to have the rivalry mean something again. Now, as far as the Bruins are concerned, I've said this, Kyle. Don't write the obituary before the funeral, okay? Because uh, the the Bruins were they're going to be a lottery team. They're going to be terrible. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. The Bruins have shown that they're very streaky, okay? A 6-win losing streak, a 7-game winning streak, okay? You take those out, they're what, 11-7? Okay, you take those out, that makes them what, 4-1?
Yep.
Like they they are they are still very good at certain things and very mid at other things. Like I think the Bruins are good at showing compete. Last year they were not showing compete. When the Bruins were on their 6-game losing streak this year, they were still losing games by like 1 goal, 2 goals, empty netter, etc. Like it wasn't like they were getting blown out of the yard. Did they have a bad loss to Ottawa? Sure. Did they have a bad loss to the Avalanche? I guess. But like last year they were getting run out of the building. They would go to Winnipeg and lose 6-1. They'd go to Dallas and lose 8-1. They'd lose 7-0 to Carolina or some ridiculous thing like that. Like the Bruins were bad last year. They didn't show up. They were non-competitive. Even when the Bruins lose this year, they're competitive. Like if they lose tonight, right now they're down 2-0. I would expect them to probably lose 4-2. You know? And if they lose 4-2, that's okay because they just got to keep the train rolling. I'm not surprised that the Bruins are good. I'm not. I said they were going to be better. I said it was going to come down to Hampus Lindholm and Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm's been hurt, but they've been able to withstand that because they've had some of their depth guys be better. And then Hampus Lindholm, when he's in the lineup, they're 8-1. When he was hurt briefly, that was during that big losing streak they had in October. So I think the Bruins are not a team that has a lot of depth. I think they still struggle um, to, you know, get the puck out of zone when they're on special teams, but I think they're very good at staying in games and their goaltenders, Corpusalo and Swayman. Swayman's top 10 in the league in goals saved above expected. You know who's last? Linus Olmark. So just want everybody to understand that like sometimes these things aren't always black and white. So I think the Bruins are doing a good job this year of maybe exceeding expectations, and maybe overachieving, but also just staying competitive. Like it's gonna come down. The schedule is so dense, it's gonna come down to a handful of games. And the Bruins, if as long as they don't bottom out and have too many multiple game losing streaks, they should be right there.
Yeah. They've got a little bit of a tough stretch coming up. Senators tonight. Then you guys talk about go right next door, play the Canadians, and then you guys host the Canes.
Carolina. Yep.
You have the Red Hot Ducks up
Yep.
down. So, like you've got a tough stretch as you make your West Coast trip here, but as you mentioned, I think it's important for them to stay um, on this competitive side, keeping games close and potentially sneaking away, as you talked about before, taking games to overtime if they have to just steal a point here and there, even especially if it's against someone in the division. Like you guys went to overtime against the Senators, because as you talked about, those points do add up over time. And if you
Yeah.
get a point away from someone in the division, that's huge.
Yeah, I don't love if they lose tonight, then that the Senators took 5 out of 6 points from us in the last few weeks. I don't love that, but like the Bruins on this winning streak, they beat who did they?
Maple Leafs
They
twice.
beat the Maple Leafs twice. They beat the Senators last week at home, like you said, and then they beat the Islanders twice. That's a team that they might be competing for wild card with.
The Hurricanes.
Hurricanes, even though the Hurricanes were beat
Uh,
up.
we don't talk about the Sabres, but let's put them to the side.
Hey, you have to win those games. If they're on your schedule and the Sabres are awful and they're in your division, you got to beat them, just like any other team. So, um, I think the Bruins have an opportunity to give you know, get a foundation so that when some of their younger players like James Higgins or whomever come in next year, the year after, they're not a team that's at the bottom of the league. So, I think that's good if you're a Bruins fan. Um, I'll give you the last word on the league before we close up. Like, has anything this season changed your mind about your Stanley Cup pick? Because I think I had my Stanley Cup pick was I want to say Stars beat the Lightning, I think is what I had.
Yes, I think that's what you had.
Um, and did you have,
I think I had the Stars versus the Panthers,
yeah,
I believe.
has anything changed for you?
Uh Potentially in the West. I still think the Panthers still have the East for now until I'm proven otherwise. But I still think it's a little too early. Give me till like January, and then give me another month, and I can kind of decide
Yeah,
to shape up. But like I said, I mean, let's talk about the Bruins. It's great that they're at this hot start. I think it's also you talked about before. I think it's great for hockey in general that Montreal's back again potentially, and the Bruins
yes,
back again. So talked about before where you were missing this rivalry between Montreal. The last time they had this competitiveness was when Carey Price and PK were both on the Canadians.
yeah. We
And
haven't played each other in the playoffs since 2014. Um, and they haven't, I mean,
so now you have two real Canadian teams to really hate upon.
yeah. Plus, we always get we can always hate the New York Rangers, etc. Teams like that. But it's really Montreal, Toronto been the huge rivals
the original.
for the Bruins in my lifetime. It's sort of been heavy to Toronto last 10 years or so because of those playoff matchups. But Montreal, Boston on a Saturday night, with that if the Bruins can turn it around tonight, that could be for first place in the Atlantic at the moment. Uh, that could be really exciting. And I think it's good for the sport, like you said. Um, so I'm not gonna make any changes either. I'm gonna wait a little bit, just like you said. I lied. One final question for you: Who wins the Hart Trophy if the season ended today? And then we'll close up.
Who wins the Hart Trophy? Oh gosh, Celebrini.
Wow, I like it.
I think he's just playing. I mean, Nathan McKinnon is also playing out of his mind, but I think if he takes this Sharks team to the playoffs, he should win it.
Um, I think I think McKinnon probably wins it if he keeps up this pace because that's what the writers do. They're not very exciting with their choices. Um, but I like your Celebrity pick, and for that reason, I'll go Bedard.
But they've got to take both of their respective teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. And I think next pod we should talk about because rumor has it that that Team Canada was picking their roster, right? So I know we picked our USA roster a couple months ago. I wonder what Canada's going to do with these guys. Um, because I mean they're going to play wing if they go,
There's a
but
lot. that's gonna be. Let's just put it this way. I think this Olympics might be one of the most fun NHL slash times in our generation. Just when we had Crosby, we did have Ovechkin. We have such more youth, and we hadn't seen them play in umpteen years with everything going on, and so much more open ice. How
Right.
much
It's not going to be like Four Nations. They're going to be on open ice,
open
like
ice,
European hockey, basically.
how much more fast paced and fun is this gonna be to watch?
Right. And I think like the Sochi tournament was okay. Like it was kind
Yeah,
of underwhelming, but like we haven't seen NHLers on big ice like this since Sochi. But then in Vancouver, they played on NHL ice. So it's really been like we've only seen it once since 2006. All right, that's 20 something years. 20 years we've only seen them on Olympic ice once, NHLers. So,
go into that. Maybe we'll have more insight on if the ice regulations are going to be passed first of all over there in Italy.
yeah, yeah, Italy, great with pizza and cannolis. Not great at building a hockey rink, allegedly. So, yeah, well, maybe we'll hold our breath there. Yeah, so next show, I think we should talk some more Olympics. We'll do a swing around the NHL. It'll be closer to Thanksgiving, so we'll take a snapshot of the league again, just like we did tonight. Mikhail, appreciate you jumping on. It's been
No
fun.
problem. Join.
All right, boys. If you boys and girls, I should say, if you want to catch us more, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next time, talk more hockey. He's Kyle Diezel. I'm Will Highland. Have a great rest of your week.